What family medical emergency did your parents refuse to believe until it was almost too late? It started with headaches in October of my senior year. Not terrible ones, just this constant dull pressure behind my eyes that made it hard to concentrate during calculus or chemistry lab. When I mentioned it to my mom while she was making dinner, she blamed it on too much screen time and told me to spend less time on my phone and computer. I'm Sarah, and I've always been what my parents called dramatic about being sick. When I was younger, I'd complain about stomach aches to get out of school tests, so they'd learn to be skeptical whenever I mentioned symptoms. But these headaches were different from anything I'd experienced before. They happened every single day, even when I wasn't looking at screens or doing homework. By November, I was getting dizzy during basketball practice, not just tired from running drills, but actually lightheaded to the point where I had to sit down on the gym floor with my head between my knees. Coach Williams sent me to the school nurse twice, who took my blood pressure and said everything looked completely normal. When I told my dad about the dizziness, he said I was probably just out of shape from eating too much Halloween candy and junk food. The nausea started around Thanksgiving weekend. I'd wake up every morning feeling sick to my stomach and barely able to eat breakfast without gagging. My mom assumed it was stress from college application deadlines and kept pushing me to eat more, saying I was getting too thin and needed proper nutrition, but food made me feel significantly worse, not better. I started having trouble with my vision in early December. Words on the blackboard would blur together during lectures, and I'd get these weird blind spots that lasted for several minutes at a time. My parents immediately scheduled an eye exam, convinced I needed glasses like my dad. The eye doctor said my vision was actually perfect and suggested the problems might be related to stress or normal teenage hormone fluctuations. During winter break, I slept for 14 hours a day and still felt exhausted. My parents thought I was just catching up on rest from a busy first semester of senior year. But even after sleeping that much, I felt completely drained all the time. Simple things like walking upstairs to my bedroom left me breathing hard and needing to rest. The worst part was how confused I'd get during normal conversations. I'd lose track of what people were saying mid-sentence, or forget what I was talking about while I was still talking about it. My mom said that was completely normal for teenagers and joked that I had senioritis like all my friends. By January, my grades were dropping despite studying more hours than ever before. I couldn't focus long enough to read a full chapter for AP history homework. My teachers started asking if everything was okay at home or if I needed extra help. When I told my parents about the concentration problems, they said it was probably anxiety about graduation and college decisions. The personality changes started in February. I became irritable and emotional over the tiniest things. I'd cry during movies that weren't even sad, or get angry at my little brother for chewing too loud during dinner. My parents attributed it to teenage hormones and the natural stress that comes with senior year of high school. I tried multiple times telling them something was really wrong with me, that all these symptoms happening together wasn't normal teenage behavior, that I felt like something was seriously broken inside my brain. But they'd dealt with my dramatic health episodes before and assumed this was just more of the same attention-seeking behavior. The seizure happened on a Tuesday morning in early March while I was getting dressed for school. One minute I was putting on my jeans, and the next minute I was on my bedroom floor with my mom shaking me frantically, asking if I could hear her voice. I had no memory of falling or how much time had passed. That's when my parents finally rushed me to the emergency room instead of dismissing my symptoms. The CT scan revealed what I'd been trying to tell them for 5 months. And that's when the doctor explained exactly what had been growing inside my skull all along. Glioblastoma multiforme, grade 4, the doctor says, his voice clinical and detached as he points to a large white mass on the scan displayed on the monitor. It's approximately 4 centimeters in diameter, located in the right frontal lobe. I stare at the image, at the bright blob that doesn't belong there, the thing that's been stealing pieces of me for months, the thing my parents thought was teenage drama. The emergency room is a blur of activity around us. The Dr. Patel, according to his badge, continues explaining something about aggressive growth patterns and immediate intervention, but I can't focus on his words. I'm transfixed by the scan, by the physical proof that I wasn't making it all up. My mother collapses into the plastic chair beside my gurney. Her mascara is smeared down her cheeks, and she's making this horrible keening sound I've never heard before. My father stands rigid, his face drained of all color as he grips the bedrail so hard his knuckles turn white. This explains all the symptoms you've been experiencing, doctor, Patel says, looking directly at me instead of my parents. The headaches, dizziness, nausea, vision problems, fatigue, confusion, personality changes, they're all consistent with a tumor in this location. My father finally speaks, his voice cracking. But how? How did we miss this? How did everyone miss this? Brain tumors can be difficult to diagnose initially, Dr. Patel explains. The symptoms often mimic other conditions, and in younger patients, they're frequently attributed to stress, hormones, or other common adolescent issues. We thought she was being dramatic, my mother sobs, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, but I don't squeeze back. We didn't believe her. What happens now? I ask, surprised by how calm my voice sounds. Doctor. Patel's expression becomes more serious. We need to move quickly. I've already consulted with Dr. Sharma, our chief neurosurgeon. We want to schedule surgery for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? My father asks, his voice rising. That's so fast. Shouldn't we get a second opinion? Research our options? With a tumor of this size and grade, time is critical, doctor, Patel says firmly. The seizure you experienced indicates the pressure on your brain is reaching dangerous levels. Waiting even a few days increases the risk significantly. My mother's sobbing intensifies, and a nurse appears with tissues and a cup of water. My father paces the small area at the foot of my bed, running his hands through his hair repeatedly. What are the risks? Dr. Patel sits on a rolling stool and moves closer to me. It's a complex procedure. The tumor is in an area that controls motor function and personality. There's risk of bleeding, infection, seizures, and potential damage to surrounding brain tissue. Recovery will take time, and you'll likely need additional treatments afterward. But without surgery, I press. Without intervention, the pressure will continue to build. You'll experience more seizures, progressive loss of function, and eventually, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. My parents are taken to a private waiting area while I'm prepped for additional scans and tests. A nurse brings me a hospital gown and helps me change out of my clothes. As she takes my vital signs, I feel a strange sense of calm washing over me. You're handling this remarkably well, she comments, wrapping the blood pressure cuff around my arm. It's just, I've been feeling so crazy for months, I explain. Everyone kept telling me it was nothing, that I was overreacting or making it up for attention. Now I know I wasn't imagining things. There's actually something wrong with me. When my parents return, they've both been crying. My mom's eyes are swollen, and my dad's usual confident posture is gone. They hover awkwardly at my bedside, as if they're afraid to touch me. Sarah, we're so sorry, my mom whispers. We should have listened to you. We should have brought you in sooner. You kept telling us something was wrong, my dad adds, his voice thick, and we dismissed you. I don't know what to say to them. Part of me wants to scream, to remind them of every time they told me I was being dramatic or seeking attention. But another part sees how destroyed they are, how the guilt is crushing them right before my eyes. Dr. Sharma arrives then, a tall woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She explains the surgical procedure in more detail, how they'll remove as much of the tumor as possible while trying to preserve normal brain function. What about other options? My dad interrupts. Radiation? Chemotherapy? There has to be alternatives to cutting into her brain tomorrow. Those treatments will likely be necessary after surgery. Doctor. Sharma explains patiently, but they won't address the immediate danger of intracranial pressure. The seizure Sarah experienced is a warning sign we cannot ignore. My mother breaks down again. This is our fault. If we'd brought her in months ago when she first complained. Mrs. Mitchell, early detection is helpful, but glioblastomas are aggressive tumors. Even with immediate intervention, they're challenging to treat. Doctor. Sharma says, but her words don't seem to comfort my mom. As they discuss treatment plans and consent forms, I find myself strangely detached from the conversation. I should be terrified. They're talking about cutting open my skull tomorrow, but instead, I feel an odd sense of relief. For 5 months, I've been disappearing piece by piece, doubting my own perceptions because everyone kept telling me I was fine. Now I know the truth. There's a tumor in my brain. I'm not crazy. I'm not dramatic. I'm not seeking attention. I was right all along. They moved me to a private room on the neurosurgery floor. The walls are a pale blue that reminds me of the nursery my parents painted for my little brother when I was 10. A nurse hangs a whiteboard with Sarah, written in purple marker, along with today's date and tomorrow's surgery time, 7:30 a.m. Try to get some rest, she says, adjusting my IV. Dr. Sharma wants you well rested before tomorrow. Rest, as if I could possibly sleep with a ticking time bomb in my head. My parents hover awkwardly at the foot of my bed. They've barely spoken to each other since we left the ER, communicating only through me. Are you comfortable? Do you need water? Should we call Grandma? Their voices are too bright, too careful. A different doctor comes in, Dr. Chen according to his badge, and explains they need to run more tests before tomorrow's surgery. We need to map the exact boundaries of the tumor and check blood flow patterns, he says, flipping through my chart. The MRI showed something concerning. Concerning how? My dad asks, his voice tight. Dr. Chen glances at me before answering. The tumor appears to be growing more aggressively than we initially thought. The edema, swelling, around it suggests rapid growth in recent weeks. My mom makes a strangled sound and turns away. My dad puts his hand on her shoulder, but she shrugs it off. I'll be back in 30 minutes to take you for the additional scans, Dr. Chen says, and leaves us in suffocating silence. I need some air, my mom finally says, and hurries from the room without looking at either of us. My dad sighs deeply and sinks into the chair beside my bed. He takes off his glasses and rubs his eyes. She's taking this hard. And you're not? I ask. He puts his glasses back on and attempts a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I'm trying to stay focused on what happens next. The treatment plan. Is that why you two aren't talking to each other? His smile falters. We're just processing this differently. Dad, I heard you arguing in the hallway earlier. He looks down at his hands. That wasn't. We weren't arguing. You were blaming each other, I say, for missing the signs. Before he can respond, a nurse appears to take me for my scans. My dad squeezes my hand and promises to be waiting when I return. The tests take nearly 2 hours. I'm shuttled between different machines, injected with contrast dye, asked to follow lights with my eyes, and tested on memory and coordination. By the time I return to my room, exhaustion has settled into my bones. My parents are both there, sitting on opposite sides of the room. The tension between them is so thick I can almost see it. My mom's eyes are red and puffy. My dad is staring at his phone, but I can tell he's not really reading anything. A social worker visits, offering resources and support. A nurse brings dinner I can't eat. Dr. Sharma stops by to review the surgical plan one more time. The tumor is dangerously close to areas controlling motor function and speech. The surgery will take approximately 10 hours. The risks include permanent disability, personality changes, memory loss, death. She doesn't say it outright, but it hangs in the air between us. After she leaves, my mom excuses herself to make phone calls. My dad follows a few minutes later, mumbling something about coffee. I'm finally alone, and the reality of my situation crashes over me like a wave. Tomorrow, they're going to cut open my skull. Tomorrow, I might die on an operating table. Tomorrow, I might wake up unable to speak or move or remember who I am. I reach for the notepad and pen on the bedside table. If this is my last night, there are things I need to say. I start with a letter to my parents. Mom and Dad, if you're reading this, something went wrong in surgery. First, I want you to know I don't blame you for not believing me. I was the girl who cried wolf when I was younger. Remember when I convinced you I had appendicitis after reading about it in a book? But I need you to know something. I forgive you. Please don't spend the rest of your lives blaming yourselves or each other. I love you both. I write to my little brother next, telling him to take my college fund and use it to travel the world. I write to my best friend Emma about the secret crush I've had on her brother for years. I write to Coach Williams, thanking him for being the only adult who seemed to notice something was truly wrong. I'm halfway through a letter to my future self, the one who might wake up tomorrow with half a brain and no memory, when I hear muffled voices in the hallway, my mom's voice, cracking with emotion. I told her it was just screen time. I told her to take Advil and stop complaining. What kind of mother does that? We both missed it, Karen. My dad's voice is weary. I'm the one who said she was out of shape when she couldn't make it through basketball practice. But I'm her mother. I'm supposed to know when something is really wrong, she told me. Mark. She told me something was wrong in her head. Those exact words. And I laughed and said it was college application stress. The doctors said even if we'd brought her in after the first symptoms. Don't. My mom's voice hardens. Don't try to make me feel better about this. Our daughter has been suffering for 5 months while we called her dramatic. 5 months, Mark. Their voices move away, and I'm left staring at my half-finished letters. I fold them carefully and tuck them under my pillow. Maybe I won't need them. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and still be me. But as I lie back against the hospital pillows, watching the IV drip slowly into my arm, I can't shake the feeling that the Sarah who wakes up tomorrow, if she wakes up at all, will be someone different. The nurse comes in to give me medication to help me sleep before surgery. As the drugs pull me under, I think about all the plans I had for senior year. College visits, prom, graduation. I wonder which of those things I'll still be alive to experience. They wheel me into pre-op at 6:45 a.m. The anesthesiologist explains the process while a nurse shaves a strip of my hair, leaving the rest intact. Most of it will still be there when you wake up, she says with forced tearfulness. We only need to clear the surgical area. I nod, unable to form words. The letters under my pillow feel like they're burning through the mattress. Did I say everything I needed to say? Will anyone ever read them? My parents hover at the edge of the room, their faces pale and drawn. They didn't sleep last night. I heard them pacing, whispering, and occasionally arguing in hushed tones outside my door. My mom's eyes are so swollen she can barely open them. My dad keeps cleaning his glasses over and over, a nervous habit he's had since I was little. Dr. Sharma arrives in surgical scrubs, her hair completely covered. She reviews the procedure one more time, her voice steady and confident. We'll be monitoring brain activity throughout. If we encounter any areas that affect critical functions, we'll have to work around them. And if you can't, my dad asks, then we'll remove as much of the tumor as safely possible and discuss additional treatment options afterward. She looks directly at me. Are you ready, Sarah? I'm not ready. How could anyone be ready for this? But I nod anyway. We'll see you when you wake up, my mom says, leaning down to kiss my forehead. Her tears fall onto my cheeks. I love you so much. My dad squeezes my hand. We'll be right here waiting. The nurse injects something into my IV that makes my body feel heavy. As they wheel me toward the operating room, the ceiling tiles blur together, and I think about how 5 months ago, my biggest worry was whether I'd get into my first choice college. The waiting room is a special kind of hell. Every time the door opens, my parents look up with identical expressions of desperate hope, only to slump back when it's not Dr. Sharma. 4 hours into the surgery, they still haven't spoken directly to each other. My mom sits with her sister, my Aunt Jen, who drove 3 hours to be here. My dad paces between the coffee machine and the window, checking his phone obsessively even though it hasn't rung. The waiting room fills with other families as the morning progresses. Other people waiting for news about loved ones with brain tumors, aneurysms, strokes. Around noon, my dad finally sits beside my mom. "Karen," he says quietly, "we can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" Her voice is flat, empty. "Blaming each other, blaming ourselves. It's not helping Sarah." My mom stares at the floor. "I keep thinking about Thanksgiving. Remember how she could barely eat? I told her it was just anxiety about college applications. I told her to take deep breaths and drink ginger tea." Her voice breaks. "Our daughter had a brain tumor and I gave her tea. And I told her she was out of shape when she couldn't make it through basketball practice." My dad says. "We both missed it." A woman sitting across from them looks up. "You too, huh?" My parents turn to her, startled. "My son had headaches for 3 months before his diagnosis," she continues. "The pediatrician said it was migraines." I believed him. She gestures to a teenage boy in a wheelchair across the room, his head partially shaved and bandaged. That was 6 months ago. 2 surgeries later, he's still fighting. One by one, other parents in the waiting room join the conversation. A father whose daughter complained of dizziness for weeks before collapsing at school. A mother who thought her son's vision problems were from too much time on his phone. Family after family with the same story. Symptoms dismissed, concerns minimized, diagnoses delayed. "The worst part is the guilt," says a man whose wife is in surgery. "Knowing they told you something was wrong and you didn't listen." My mom is crying again, but differently now. Not the desperate, guilty sobs from before, but something quieter, shared. My dad puts his arm around her shoulders, and this time she doesn't pull away. 8 hours into the surgery, Dr. Chen comes to update them. The tumor is more invasive than the scans showed, wrapping around critical structures. They've removed about 60% so far, but they're encountering complications. "What kind of complications?" my dad asks. "Some bleeding, and the tumor is adhered to areas controlling motor function." Dr. Sharma is proceeding very cautiously. "But Sarah will be okay?" My mom's voice trembles. Dr. Chen's expression is carefully neutral. "We're doing everything possible." Dr. Sharma is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. He returns to the operating room, leaving my parents clinging to each other in the silence that follows. 10 hours become 11. 11 become 12. The waiting room empties and fills again with new families, new anxieties. My parents stop checking the time, existing in a limbo where minutes stretch into hours, and the only thing that matters is the next update. Finally, at 8:17 p.m., nearly 13 hours after the surgery began, Dr. Sharma appears, still in her surgical gown. She looks exhausted but composed as she approaches my parents. "We were able to remove approximately 70% of the tumor," she says, sitting across from them. "The remaining 30% is too deeply integrated with critical brain structures to safely remove." "What does that mean?" my dad asks. "For Sarah's recovery? For her future?" "It means we need to discuss next steps. There are treatment options for the remaining tumor. Targeted radiation, chemotherapy, some promising clinical trials." She pauses. "But I need to prepare you. Sarah experienced some complications during surgery." My mom makes a sound like she's been punched. "We encountered bleeding that temporarily affected blood flow to certain areas of her brain. We won't know the full extent of the impact until she wakes up, but there may be some neurological deficits." "Deficits?" my dad repeats. "You mean damage?" "Possibly temporary, possibly permanent. It could affect her speech, movement, cognitive function. We won't know until she regains consciousness." "When will that be?" my mom asks. "We're bringing her out of anesthesia now. She's being moved to the ICU, where we'll monitor her closely. You can see her in about 30 minutes. The ICU is eerily quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors. I'm in a private room with glass walls, surrounded by machines tracking every vital sign. My head is wrapped in bandages, with drains and tubes emerging from beneath them. My face is swollen beyond recognition, my right eye completely closed. I hear my parents before I see them. My mom's sharp intake of breath. My dad's murmured, "Oh God." Then, they're beside me, their faces swimming in and out of focus as I struggle to open my left eye. I try to speak, to tell them I'm still here, but my mouth won't form words. Panic rises in my chest as I realize I can't move my right arm or leg. I can feel them, they're heavy and tingling, but they won't respond to my commands. "Sarah?" My mom leans close, her face blurry. "Can you hear me, sweetheart?" I try to nod, but even that simple movement sends pain shooting through my skull. A small sound escapes my throat, not a word, just a whimper. "She's waking up," my dad says, pressing the call button. "That's good, right?" "Sarah?" We're right here. You're going to be okay. Dr. Sharma arrives with a neurologist I haven't met before. They check my pupils, ask me to squeeze their fingers. I can only respond with my left hand and try to get me to follow simple commands. The frustration is overwhelming. I understand everything they're saying, but my body won't cooperate. Sarah, Dr. Sharma says, can you try to speak? Just say your name. I concentrate with everything I have, focusing on that one word. The sound hisses between my lips, but I can't form the rest. That's good, the neurologist says encouragingly. The fact that you're trying means the language centers are functioning. They explain to my parents that I've experienced what they call post-operative deficits, damage to the motor pathways controlling my right side, and possible impact to speech centers. They use words like neuroplasticity and rehabilitation potential, and cautiously optimistic. My parents listen with identical expressions of determined hope, nodding at all the right moments, asking about recovery timelines and therapy options. But when the doctors leave, my mom collapses into the chair beside my bed, her composure crumbling. I'm so sorry, Sarah, she whispers, taking my left hand. I'm so sorry. I squeeze her fingers weakly, trying to communicate what I can't say aloud. I'm still here. I'm still me. Dr. Chen returns later with scans showing the remaining tumor, a ghostly white shadow nestled deep in my brain. He explains that they're recommending an experimental treatment protocol, a combination of targeted radiation and immunotherapy that has shown promising results in similar cases. It's aggressive, he tells my parents, and there are risks, but given Sarah's age and the nature of the remaining tumor, we believe it offers the best chance. What about the deficits? My dad asks. Will this treatment help with those? The treatment targets the tumor, not the damage already done, Dr. Chen explains gently. For that, Sarah will need intensive rehabilitation, speech therapy, physical therapy, possibly occupational therapy. The good news is that young brains have remarkable adaptability. My parents look at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Then my dad turns back to Dr. Chen. What do we need to do to get started? As they discuss treatment plans and consent forms, I drift in and out of consciousness, caught between relief that I'm alive and terror at what lies ahead. The letters under my hospital pillow seem like they were written by someone else, a different Sarah who worried about dying but never considered that surviving might be the harder path. The physical therapy room at Children's Memorial has become my second home. 6 months after surgery, I'm still here 3 times a week, working with Elise, my therapist who somehow manages to be both ruthlessly demanding and endlessly patient. 5 more, Sarah. All the way to your shoulder this time. I grit my teeth and force my right arm upward. The movement is jerky, uncoordinated, but it happens. 6 months ago, that arm lay useless beside me in the ICU. 6 months of sweat, tears, and occasional swearing have given me back about 70% of its function. Good, Elise says, making a note on her tablet. Now let's try the stairs again. I suppress a groan. The stairs are my nemesis, 12 steps that might as well be Mount Everest. My right leg still drags slightly, the foot turning inward when I'm tired. I grip the railing with my left hand and begin the slow, methodical climb. 1, 2, 3. Remember your heel-toe pattern. Elise coaches from behind me. Don't let that foot turn in. 4, 5, 6. My leg starts to tremble with exertion. Before the tumor, I could sprint up and down the basketball court for hours. Now, half a flight of stairs leaves me shaking. 7, 8. You've got this, Sarah. Just like we practiced. 9, 10, 11, 12. I reach the top and turn around, breathing hard but smiling. It's my fastest time yet. My parents are waiting in the observation area, my mom recording the session on her phone. She's documenting everything now, every milestone, every achievement, no matter how small. Last week, she cried when I tied my shoes without help. That's enough for today, Elise says, helping me back down. Speech therapy is in 15 minutes, right? I nod, with Dr. Ramirez. My words come more easily now, though I still stumble over certain sounds and sometimes lose track mid-sentence. The aphasia, that's what they call it when your brain knows what it wants to say but your mouth can't form the words, has improved dramatically, but it's still there, lurking beneath the surface, ready to trap me when I'm tired or stressed. We're so proud of you, my dad says as I join them, handing me a water bottle. He's lost weight since my diagnosis, his clothes hanging slightly loose on his frame. The guilt has eaten away at him, despite my attempts to absolve him. My mom tucks a strand of hair behind my ear, careful to avoid the right side of my head where my hair is still growing back unevenly. Coach Williams called again. He wants to know if you'll come to the team's end-of-year banquet. I hesitate. I haven't been back to school full-time yet, just 3 half-days per week, carefully scheduled around my treatments and therapy sessions. Being around my old teammates feels complicated. They send cards, text messages, occasionally visit, but there's always this awkward distance, as if my illness is somehow contagious. Maybe, I say finally, Let me think about it. The experimental treatment protocol for my remaining tumor started 2 weeks after surgery. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I sit in a recliner while specialized radiation targets what's left of the glioblastoma, followed by immunotherapy infusions designed to teach my body to attack the cancer cells. The side effects are brutal nausea that no antiemetic can fully control, fatigue that feels like gravity has suddenly doubled, and headaches that remind me of those early days when no one believed me. But the tumor is shrinking. Slowly, stubbornly, it's retreating. Your college advisor emailed, my dad says as we walk toward the speech therapy wing. Northeastern is offering a deferred admission. You could start next spring instead of this fall. College. It seems like a lifetime ago that I was worrying about application essays and campus visits. My acceptance letters arrived while I was still in the ICU, unable to fully comprehend what they meant. I'm not ready, I admit. Not yet. My parents exchange a look I've come to recognize concern wrapped in forced optimism. There's no rush, my mom says quickly. You could take a gap year, or start with online classes. What she doesn't say is what we all know. My future has been fundamentally altered. The Sarah who applied to those colleges, the basketball player with perfect grades and boundless energy, doesn't exist anymore. In her place is this new version, who tires after a flight of stairs, and sometimes can't remember simple words. Dr. Ramirez is waiting for me in the speech therapy room, a stack of flashcards ready. Today we're working on narrative sequencing, she explains, telling a story from beginning to end without losing the thread. Something I used to do effortlessly, something that now requires intense concentration. As I work through the exercises, I catch glimpses of my parents through the observation window. They're talking to another couple whose son is just starting treatment. I recognize the shell-shocked look on their faces, the desperate hunger for reassurance. My parents have become unofficial counselors to newly diagnosed families. My mom started a support group for parents of teens with brain tumors, and my dad volunteers at the hospital's Family Resource Center every weekend. They've channeled their guilt into advocacy, speaking at medical conferences about recognizing neurological symptoms in adolescents. Last month, they were interviewed for a medical journal article titled, "When Teenage Complaints Hide Serious Illness: Improving Diagnostic Timeframes in Adolescent Patients." The article included a timeline of my symptoms, from those first headaches in October through the seizure in March, with notes about how each was dismissed or misinterpreted. I think we're done for today, Dr. Ramirez says, bringing my attention back to the present. You're making excellent progress, Sarah. Progress. Such a deceptive word. It implies a straight line from illness to health, when the reality is more like a tangled scribble forward motion interrupted by setbacks, plateaus, and unexpected detours. My return to school has been the hardest part. I started with just one class, AP English, my favorite 3 months after surgery. Walking through those hallways felt like entering a foreign country, where I once knew the language but had somehow forgotten it. People stared at my uneven gait, at the patchy regrowth of hair I tried to hide under beanies, at the way my right hand sometimes trembled. Teachers were accommodating to the point of awkwardness, offering extensions I didn't ask for, making exceptions I didn't want. My friends tried their best, but our conversations were strained, filled with careful omissions and forced cheerfulness. Emma, my best friend since 7th grade, is the only one who treats me normally. She visits almost every day, bringing homework and gossip, never flinching when I struggle to find a word or need to rest mid-conversation. "You're still you," she told me once, when I broke down crying after forgetting the name of my favorite book. The tumor took some things, but it didn't take you. I cling to those words on my darkest days, when the future I planned seems impossibly distant. My parents are waiting when I finish speech therapy, talking quietly with Dr. Sharma, who oversees my overall care. They stop abruptly when I approach, which usually means they're discussing something they don't want me to worry about. "What?" I ask, looking between them. "Just reviewing your latest scans," Dr. Sharma says smoothly. "The treatment is working as expected," which isn't quite the same as saying it's working well. I've learned to decode these careful phrasings, to hear what's not being said. And I press. My mom takes my hand, and we're discussing options for the next phase of treatment. "Dr. Sharma thinks you might be a good candidate for a clinical trial at Johns Hopkins, another hospital. More treatments, more uncertainty. We'll talk about it at home," my dad says, sensing my overwhelm. No decisions need to be made today. The drive home is quiet. I rest my head against the window, watching the familiar landmarks pass by. We moved to a single-story house 2 months after my surgery, when it became clear that navigating stairs would be a long-term challenge. Our old home, the one where I had my seizure, where I grew up, where my height marks are penciled on the kitchen doorframe, is being lived in by strangers now. Coach Williams texted again. My mom says, breaking the silence. "He says the team wants to dedicate their season to you. They're putting your number on their warm-up jerseys." I feel a complicated surge of emotions, gratitude, sadness, a strange sense of disconnection. "Tell him I'll come to the banquet," I decide. "But I don't want to give a speech or anything." "Of course," she says. relief evident in her voice. She's been pushing for more normal activities, worried that I'm becoming isolated in my world of hospitals and therapy sessions. At home, I settle onto the couch while my dad prepares dinner. Our routine has shifted completely since my diagnosis. My mom quit her job to manage my care full-time. My dad works from home 3 days a week. My little brother has become surprisingly protective, taking on chores without complaint, explaining my condition to his friends with fierce accuracy. Sarah, my mom, sits beside me, holding a familiar envelope. I found this when we were moving. You never told me about these. It's one of the goodbye letters I wrote the night before surgery. The one addressed to her and Dad. My throat tightens. I wasn't sure if I'd wake up, I explain, or if I'd still be me if I did. She opens the letter with trembling fingers, reading the words I wrote when I thought I might be dying, when I forgave them for not believing me. Oh, Sarah. Her voice breaks. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Mom, no. Listen to me. She takes my hands in hers. What happened to you changed everything. How I see the world, how I listen to people, how I understand pain that isn't visible. I will spend the rest of my life making sure other parents don't make our mistake. I lean against her shoulder, suddenly exhausted, and I do know. I've watched my parents transform their guilt into purpose, turning our family tragedy into a mission to educate others. They can't change what happened to me, but they might save someone else's child. My dad joins us, sitting on my other side. For a moment, we're silent, a family rebuilt around the crater of catastrophe. I got an email from that blog today, he says finally. They want to publish your story. I've been writing about my experience, the missed symptoms, the dismissals, the eventual diagnosis, the ongoing recovery. It started as therapy, a way to process what happened, but it's evolved into something more purposeful. I think I'm ready, I say. Someone else might recognize themselves in it. My mom squeezes my hand. My dad nods, his eyes suspiciously bright. 6 months ago, I was a different person with a different future. The tumor took things from me I'll never get back. But sitting here between my parents, I realize it gave me something too. A voice that demands to be heard, a story that needs telling, and the certainty that when I say something is wrong, I will never again be silenced.